All right, so here's what the class is looking like, not really for the rest of the year, but for what's coming up next. We've got about 2 weeks discussing cults. So we're going to start the cults unit today. You can find the workbook and the textbook on Kanglory. So if you open up Kanglory, find our class. We've got each unit here. Criminology's done. We're moving into cults. Here's our textbook, the workbook. Again, if you don't want to use the workbook, that's fine, but I am going to be collecting it or your notes periodically, just like we did through criminology, just to make sure that we're following along and all understanding the topics. So even if you're not using the workbook, make sure you're taking good notes and responding to the questions that are up here when asked. Some people like to follow along with the PowerPoint, so I put a PDF of the PowerPoint up there. This is for the whole 2 weeks, and I tend to change things around, so slides might move or some things might be added, but if you want, there's the PowerPoint. And I think there's a video underneath that also, something that we're going to watch in class today. So, after you've downloaded the workbook, go to the page with the key term traffic lights, just like we did for the criminology one. And you might want to take some time now, if you haven't already, to open the criminology workbook and fill out the end of the unit for the criminology terms. But do the before we begin. Red, you don't know it. Yellow, you do. Green, you know it well enough to explain it already to somebody else. So fill that out. If you finish early, you could read the introduction page on 36. We'll have some time to read the next 2 pages also in class. And then what we're doing is starting the next unit on cults. So you make the workbook, no rush, you can get the workbook and the textbook and everything. Hopefully by now everyone is downloading these and putting them in a designated folder and not going back to Kanglory and re-downloading it every time. So if you are doing that, make sure that you download it and put it somewhere where you can find it again.
Dissonance means it doesn't sync. 翻译过来是邪教。
One thing you might notice while looking over these is that in criminology we focus quite a bit in the biological approach or the biological perspective. This is much more sociocultural focused. You'll also see that some of these topics, at least social learning theory, we talked about before. And that's going to be a common theme throughout the class, is that we want to be able to apply these different theories and points to different contexts. Right? So we looked at, for example, testosterone with aggressive behavior in criminology. Later we might look at testosterone and its effects on attraction. I don't think we will, but that's an idea. Berg stands for basking in reflected glory.
That was big. Yeah, it's just a whole lot of work.
I mean, that's kind of expected. If they were all green, then you could just move on to the next chapter.
Bergen? Is that like a guy's name? Or is it?
It's an abbreviation for the name of the study.
No.
Basking in Reflected Glory by C.L. Beanie.
Okay.
It's basically like taking the group's achievements and attributing them or including them in your own self-esteem. So if you're a big Chicago Bulls fan and they win, you're basking in their reflected glory. You get a self-esteem. Yeah, we won the game. But if they lose, it's not we anymore. It's they lost. So that's the idea.
So like
but the study was done on college football students.
it's a wagon?
Like
Something called like a wagon jumper?
Like a bandwagon.
Bandwagon.
Well, I think the bandwagon idea is the idea that you would jump from team to team, like who's ever doing best.
Has the same like thing.
But similar, yeah, similar area. All right, we'll take like another minute to fill these out and then get started with cults.
Is Heaven's Gate cult the one where everyone killed themselves?
Yeah, I feel like that's most cults.
No,
But yes, it is.
Is the one the Jonestown massacre? Is it that?
Well, yeah. Would massacre be the word if it was a mass suicide?
It wasn't mass suicide because they shot each other.
Wasn't that the one? I'm not an expert on cults, other than what we're learning here. Isn't that the one though, where they drank poison Kool-Aid?
Yeah, that's that one.
Why Kool-Aid?
Because the stuff that would taste good.
I mean, if you have to drink poison,
There's like an audio file on YouTube that's like just them passing away.
I think Romeo did that.
is it? Like there's an audio file of them?
Yeah, it's a 35-minute audio of just like the entire thing of what happened. So when they feed their kids like the Kool-Aid, you can hear them crying and then hear them stop. It's creepy.
That's very disturbing.
It's pretty weird.
Thank you for that information.
No problem, man. I'll continue the video.
All right, let's move on. So just like with criminology, where we didn't really talk that much about criminals, it was just kind of a way to frame the unit in terms of we focus mainly on aggressive behavior. This is going to be about the same. We'll mention some cults. We're going to talk about Heaven's Gate at the beginning, but it's really just a way to kind of bring everything together. The main ideas here are going to be about, even outside of cults, what is conformity and why do we conform and how do we conform? What's the difference between conformity and compliance? How maybe does media or how do people get you to comply either willingly or unwillingly and things like that. So this is going to be largely based on group behavior rather than individual behavior so much. But this isn't important for the test, but sociology is the study of group behavior. We in psychology are going to be looking at group behavior in terms of its effect on the individual. So we're looking at the individual in groups. All right, cults. These are all the topics. They're essentially the same as the key terms that you just saw, starting with compliance techniques. We're going to start looking at Heaven's Gate. We're going to look at a couple famous studies. I thought it would take longer reviewing the test. We'll probably get through more than I thought. But so anyway, some of the studies you might be familiar with. So if you are, good. If not, hopefully they're interesting. So compliance techniques. Does anyone today want to put green under compliance in the vocabulary? What does it mean to comply?
Agree and to show support.
Sort of.
Yeah, so I put yellow.
Yellow is good.
Good safety.
Yeah, so to comply means to go along, even even if you don't agree with it, right, or you don't understand. You do something just because you were told to, something like that. Right. So by the end of today's class, we should have a clear definition of compliance, be able to talk about it, especially, for example, if you get a question in section A on paper 1, what is compliance? What's the authority principle, which is a way that one way that people comply? Why does it cause it? So here, linking to the concept again, and that's it. So here's a little bit of background on Heaven's Gate. You can read it. I'm not going to read through the PowerPoint, but you can read the slide. Then we're going to watch a video of interviews with them before they committed suicide. Is anyone really interested in cults? Does anyone know of any kind of modern day or more? This is in the 70s, so isn't that old, but more recent cults? Some people say Scientology is one.
I know there's one.
What would the difference between let's not get into that. Yeah.
I know there's one called the Base. I think there's this neo-fascism kind of thing in the U.S. There's a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. Some in the U.S. with the base, some people say MAGA is a cult.
There's one in Iran, and its roots come from Islam, but it's really odd. You'll see videos of them hitting each other, full force slapping, and that's their way of showing their beliefs.
Each other? Slapping each
hitting
other?
themselves, hitting each other.
Like self-flagellation?
They're called Alawites.
Uh-huh.
They're frowned upon in Islam, really badly. Like Mormons.
I suppose most cults are. I guess that also kind of raises the question, and we're not going to delve into that for psychology, but what's the difference then between a cult and a religion or a religious sect?
How hated they are.
How mainstream, yeah, I guess. How accepted they are by more broadly. All right, anyways, here's some of the background. You can look more into it. Would you need this on the test? I suppose if this came up in a section A where you're asked about it, this could be your example for compliance. But we're going to see better ones. So you don't need to really memorize this if you don't want, but it's a little interesting background. I think what I put on Kangori is a 10-minute video about the cult. We're going to watch a shortened, I think it's 3 or 4 minutes of, maybe. I meant to open it beforehand. Of the cult and its influence, or its interviewing members before the event. It's a video on Kangori.
sat there and gasped as each one of these members said their goodbyes.
The former Army paratrooper.
I just wanted to say how thankful I am to Doe and T for helping me and taking me under their wing, and all my classmates have been so great to me and all the problems I've caused.
The youngest member of the group, age 25. The oldest at 71, a mother of 3.
My thoughts in these last hours are only of joy and wonder at the thought of going home.
Why am I here? What is the meaning of life? Since I've been in the class, I've learned the answers to all of those.
And we couldn't be happy about what we're about to do.
But there's something you should know as these people praise Doe and thank him for showing them the way. On the other side of the camera, Doe, there, listening.
Happiest day of my life.
Once you've said something in front of somebody else, you're far less likely to renege on that, right? Do you stand up and say, oh, guess what, I changed my mind and run out of the yard? No, you don't do that.
For seeing endure what they've endured for 20 years, it's just unimaginable they've gone through that for us.
Most of them said things that were mimicking almost word for word what Applewhite had said.
This world has become so corrupt.
So corrupt.
So corrupt. So it really showed the dependency on him.
As long as I exist, I have free will.
I am doing this of my own free will.
My own free will.
I say no, they didn't have any free will. They were 38 murders and 1 suicide. If he wanted to kill himself, fine. Go ahead. Marshall Applewhite, you go first. But no, he made sure they all died.
Did they have real choice?
No, they have what I call bounded choice. They live in this bounded reality. They live in a closed world.
Nick Natzorkas took calls from the anguished families. He tried to help.
I recall, like it was yesterday, the quivering voices on the phone and how deeply it hurt them.
Makes me want to cry. Because I think, what a waste. All of those 39 people, what a waste.
This sense of betrayal is devastating to this very day.
I just wish that she could have found something worth living for here.
Thank you.
Everyone who was there is gone.
Thank you.
It ends with the fade to black.
Thank you very much.
It ends also with silence.
Alright, so there's a bunch of information around from that that's in this video on King Glory as well. If your lights are coming back on, if you're writing your EE on cults, this might be an interesting place to start. Also, as an EE update, I did talk to Mr. Walsh, and we should be figuring out the supervisors. He's gone this week, so next week is the goal. Hopefully, we'll figure that out. Is that a smile because he was gone? All right. So from that video, from what we already know, we all have heard of cults. At least, why do you think people join them? What makes someone so loyal to a leader that they comply with in order to commit suicide? So, main question here. Why do you think people join cults? Think about it, discuss in your groups, and then you'll share it with me.
I'll give you a bill.
Didn't nobody, so my son, the alien Xenon. Maybe my college.
I think that was just a fashion in the 70s.
Who's
I wasn't
like
around.
glasses that's bigger than your face, and he's like, man, that's fire.
I feel like, aren't those coming back? I feel like a lot of people wear really large frames. Maybe not so thick.
Probably long ones, not like big ones. I've seen long frames, like the fisherman ones. The racist
I hope
ones.
you just don't bring like the pulling ones.
Those are pretty good. The alien.
Look how goofy.
Those are pretty good.
I don't know, I like Miss Heather wore those, but she always had different designs to clip on.
Oh yeah.
I had a librarian that looked like a librarian. She had like the little, like I think that was stereotypical librarian from the 80s. Like
I think most librarians look like librarians except for Miss Cormier.
Except for Miss Cormier?
Yeah, I think Miss Cormier like was one of the librarians that didn't feel like you wouldn't look at her and just assume librarian.
All right. Why do you think people join cults? Getting back on topic, what is it? What is it that makes some people follow groups of people like that, or follow
sense of closure?
Of closure?
Yeah, like.
In what way?
So like, say like 4 of your family members died, and you're trying to find a reason. Be like, okay, let me know if they're safe. If you're just finding for like a reason to see, okay, they'll be fine, right? They'll be fine.
Maybe they also transformed into an alien.
Yeah, and they're safe in another realm of existence.
Maybe finding some meaning or closure. You guys come up with anything else?
Belonging
Yeah.
and like reassurance that it's okay and just make them feel okay, I guess.
Yeah, exactly that. We're gonna look at that with social identity theory as well. So a sense of belonging with being in any groups. All right, good. So we've only got 10 minutes left in the class. What we're gonna do, and then we're gonna come back and talk about the authority principle. In the textbook that you downloaded on page 37, read about compliance techniques only up to the key study. So don't read the study. We're gonna watch a video about it first so we can understand the method a little bit better. So read. There's guiding questions and questions to answer in your workbooks. At 9, we'll take a break, come back and talk about the authority principle.
Who names themselves Doe and T? Doe and T. Isn't that like piano notes?
What's that?
Like they're named Doe and T. Those are piano notes.
I mean, they're more normal, I think, than like Elon Musk's kids' names.
Or whatever. You mean the only one he talks to?
Well, I saw. I don't keep up with them, but I saw a headline of an article the other day too that he named. So there's that one, but then there's also one that he named after like a powerful spell in Elden Ring.
Okay.
No, look.
Comment Azura. Oh my god. That is awesome. Why?
Why not?
I need my kid Kiki Butthole Face. 22. I love his birth certificate on the table. He's not gonna get bullied, right?
So that's what all cultists what does that mean? You love Jesus. it and just go around and ask them to really make it. Like,
Dude, yeah, I've seen videos.
Like the guns in the Korean one.
Yeah, I've seen videos like a guy protecting people. Have you seen Korean Christians? Like evangelical Korean Christians?
Don't tell me. Like, bro, just going out like this. They were literally just going to emergency. And you just tell them something. They were literally take off your parasite onto your stomach. That's literally what they were doing.
Did you already hear about this one?
I think so. I was reading it, it was like, how the most famous study in psychology, Stanley Milgram's theory on weed with authority. I scroll down, first thing I see, electrocuting this story. This is a very messed up unit. I'm gonna have a nightmare when I go back home after just from this is amazing. Having nightmares just like this is crazy. No, because I don't think about telling people about it.
Dude, what is this? Owen, look at this, bro. Look like basic Honduran movies. Dude, who is running this country in 2025? Look at this, bro. Come on. No, it's like a buzz and a slick back. Does it? Like buzzing is like completely like a slick back? Like a putrid.
Sometimes you can top of it. This is like part-time job. Part-time job. Part-time job teacher.
I had a math teacher that was part-time. Yes. He was like the most autistic guy there. Very smart, intelligent man. There's no doubt. But he was like a little insane.
said it up there. No, don't say it. What? No, I mean, this.
Alright, so it's break time. We're going to take a 10-minute break. When we come back, we're not going to keep reading, but you'll probably have time at the end of the class to finish this up. So when you come back, we're going to talk about the authority principle and the key study here. So that's it. See you at 9:10. Alright, welcome back. Alright, hopefully everyone had 10 minutes was enough to read the one page and respond to some questions in the workbook. We're going to move on by really reviewing what it is that you just read and then trying to apply that to the concept of causality and how we see that in a famous experiment by Milgram. So somewhere in your notes, whether in the workbook or somewhere else you're taking notes, you should have by now written a definition of compliance and a definition of the authority principle. All right, so what the authority principle states, and maybe you've noticed this or seen it somewhere, either in TV or movies or real life, is that people are more likely to comply to do what somebody tells them if it's a person in authority. Or, at the very least, if they're wearing kind of clothes that make them look like they're have higher authority. All right, so we're going to look at two experiments, one done by Milgram, which we'll look at soon, and the next one, maybe by Bickman. I forget the researcher, but what they essentially did was out on the street, they had a Confederate, somebody part of the study, telling people to pick up trash or to do something on the street, and what they found was that if they were wearing a police uniform, they were more likely to comply and do what they were told. Right? There's been a bunch of studies done on compliance and the authority principle. We're going to look at two. Right, so if, for example, you're asked this in section B, section 2, section B, to apply it to some scenario, to increase, how would you use the authority principle to increase compliance connected to the scenario or something like that? One way would be using symbols of authority, have a police uniform, or a doctor's coat, or a lab coat, or something like that. So one thing to take away before we move on is authority is not just power authority, like a policeman might have, but also kind of knowledge authority, right? So if you're in a lab, and you're in a class, you're more likely to listen to somebody who's wearing a lab coat or who looks like a scientist rather than some guy just dressed up in clothes. Right, that's the idea here. Oh, it was Bickman, right? So here's the information about the study by Bickman before we move on to Milgram's famous experiment. So again, in the 70s, people were asked to do random stuff on the street, like pick up paper, give money to a stranger, move away from a bus stop, anything like that. What they found was that the rate to which people complied or listened to the instructions was based on their outfit. So they had three conditions. In one, they were dressed as a security guard. One as a milkman.
Is that a job anymore?
I didn't know that was still one in the 70s. I wouldn't say it is now. I'm surprised it was still in the 70s. Or plain clothes, right? But even if there are no milkmen, let's say a UPS driver or some kind of delivery man. And what we would assume, hopefully, based on the authority principle, is that what they found was that people were more likely to listen to people who were dressed as somebody with higher authority from the security guard. So again, another way to use this on the test for section A, if you're talking about, if you're asked about compliance, you might talk about the authority principle, or you might not even talk about it, but mention this could be your example. Whether you're talking about this study specifically, or you're using this as to come up with a hypothetical situation. So remember, you're not marked on the details of they were dressed as a security guard, milkman, and something else. You can come up with your own. You can come up with your own things that they had to do, things like that. Right? So you're making a realistic example. So you might use this as a framework for your example. I thought we were going to watch the video first. All right, so in Milgram's experiment that maybe you read about in the book, even though it asked you not to read it, the experiment was about to what extent would the participants continue to shock somebody that they knew were getting hurt up to a lethal dosage that could kill them, based on what the experimenter was telling them to do. Or sorry, what the experimenter was wearing. So if the experimenter was dressed like as a scientist wearing a lab coat and things like that, would they be more likely to administer higher and higher doses of electric shock versus if they were just wearing plain clothes? I want to watch the video first. Is the video coming next? Yeah. We're going to come back to this after the video. Right at the end. Let's watch the video and see how it goes. This is another video I forgot to load up beforehand. So one thing to note about the people and the participants that we're going to see in the study, one is the experimenter, so the person dressed as either the scientist or whoever it is that's running the experiment, obviously is part of the experiment. There's there's the participants, who are random people that they got to join, and those participants are going to be the ones that are told to shock the other person. Basically what they're going to be asked to do is, they have to give a list of words to the participants who are actually Confederates who are part of the experiment. They know what's going on. They're in another room. So there's a group of people. There's one person over there. I'm the participant. I have to read them a list of words. They need to say the words back to me. If they get one wrong, I shock them. And you do that up to a lethal dose. And the idea, the thing to keep in mind here is that the person on the other side is a Confederate. They're part of the experiment. They're not actually getting shocked, but the participant thinks that they are.
Subjects left, I can only use 4 for the heist, so a week after the seminar, I arranged to test the limits of their responsiveness to authority. So, a week ago, I arranged for them to take part in what they now think is a piece of unfilmed academic research at the university, and nothing to do with the show, supposedly looking into the effects of punishment on learning. And they believe now that this is part of their growth. In fact, it was a reenactment of a powerful experiment conducted by Stanley Milgram in 1963 to look at how normal people can commit atrocious acts simply because they're following orders. Milgram's parents were Jewish refugees in World War II, and his pioneering work speaks volumes about the nature of responsibility. It's being filmed with covert cameras.
Thank you.
They're introduced to an actor pretending to be another participant.
You didn't come from the same room? No. You don't know each other? No. We don't actually know how punishment affects learning.
After a brief introduction, our subjects are tricked into thinking they've chosen their role as teachers in the experiment.
And if you could just tell me what your positions are? Learner and teacher. Learner.
Our subjects observe the learner being instructed by the scientist, who is just another actor.
This electrode is connected to a generator in the second room. Where are we going with the teacher? Okay. Just make sure that we have a good contact with the skin so it doesn't cause any blistering or burning. Is that comfortable? That's okay, yeah. Yeah, we'll just place these straps around your arms just to avoid any excess movement. Those aren't too tight. No, that's okay. But the teacher will read out some word pairs to you. blue girl.
The learner is told he's going to be asked a series of memory questions by the teacher. He will have to load pairs and then correctly remember them when offered multiple choices.
If the answer is incorrect, you will receive an electric shock.
The teacher is then taken next door and shown the generator, which ranges from 15 volts all the way up to a lethal 450 volts. The domestic electricity supply in the UK is, of course, 240 volts. Our teachers are given the list of questions and told to increase the voltage each time the learner gets a question wrong. They are then given an example of a low voltage shock.
And try and estimate in volts the amount of shock you were getting.
Okay.
Oh, shit. Do you know how much that was?
75.
It was actually 45.
Oh my god.
Teacher again.
Shoe, horn, steam.
The point of this test is to see whether the teachers, our subjects, will call a stop to the experiment or continue to the point where they are administering seemingly lethal electric shocks to the victim simply because the scientist is telling them to.
That's correct. The next one is bicycle. The options: tyre, race, helmet, shorts. That's incorrect, so there'll be 120 volts.
I don't want to do this anymore. If you continue, please.
There is? No, I don't think we're doing anymore.
The experiment requires you to continue.
Yeah, even so, I don't think we're going to do anymore.
Correct. According to plan, our accomplice provided many wrong answers. Each protest was coordinated to a particular shock voltage on the generator, and his responses were played via a CD.
That's wrong, 150 volts. The correct answer is Captain Shoe. Cup. That's wrong. 225 volts. Take it off! Had enough of it! He's in a lot of pain.
Continue, please.
But he's not comfortable.
We must continue to the end of the experiment. We'll learn a lesson what he has to go on until he's learned the words correctly.
Okay. Forest. That's wrong, 240 volts. Are you sure it's not causing any lasting damage? He sounds like he's in a lot of pain.
Shocks might be painful, they're not harmful.
What does that mean, though? They're not harmful. Sorry, I'm not getting it. When you say that they might be painful but not harmful,
They cause no long-term damage.
because does that mean that it doesn't leave any scars?
It causes no damage.
That seems very cold and calculated to me. This doesn't seem like a very. Anyway, golden. That's wrong, mate. 300 volts. Staple. The options are diet, jar, balcony, and bowl.
If the learner doesn't answer in a reasonable time, it's 4 to 5 seconds, then you have to treat the answer as wrong and follow that procedure.
Did you hear that, learner? Just any response, mate. Come on. Wild guess.
Please continue.
345 volts, if you're still with me, I'm sorry. I can't do this, honestly. Can we stop this experiment? Because I can't do this.
I continue, we'll have to discontinue the experiment.
Yeah, okay, fine. That's fine. I'm not going to do this.
Incorrect. 405 volts.
Oh. He's pressing his drill along, so he's doing it. He doesn't have fun.
Sorry, I don't know, does someone want to check on something? It's just he's not making any noise now, he was before. Well, I'm quite happy to go on, but I just a bit worried about him. Yeah, I'm just a bit worried because he was... But he was like complaining before about the...
But no harm will come to
But he's not making any noise now.
It's essential we continue with the experiment.
Balcony. Incorrect. 450 volts. We promise it's not. Wait,
please continue the procedure.
Like, you said it hurts, but it isn't. Because it's like. It says they're dangerous and emotional. We'll be alright. Yeah?
Please continue. Discontinue the experiment there.
All of the subjects were told the true nature of the experiment was to see how they would respond to authority, and that it would eventually form part of the show.
It is okay.
I can tell you, it's absolutely fine. You actually weren't administering electric shocks to the tool. He is.
In the original Milgram experiment, psychologists were asked to predict how many people would continue to the point that they were administering the highest shock on the board. Their prediction was 1/10 of 1%. They were wrong. The results of our experiment were almost identical to the original. Over 50% of participants continued up to 450 volts. The majority of people will administer lethal electric shocks just because a guy in a white coat is telling them to.
450 volts.
450 volts.
450 volts.
450.
So after the results of the Milgram experiment, I've now chosen my 4 subjects that will go forward for the heist. Phil was impressively resourceful when he was caught stealing sweets, and held in his anguish during the Milgram the Defiled Scientist. I did want to include a woman in the group. Jen was the only subject to take a long time to recover after the Milgram experiment, so I felt I shouldn't use her. Veronica didn't steal from the shop, so that left Vicky. Of all the subjects, she was the only one to have known the original Milgram experiment and call a halt to her involvement in it.
Can I just say, I can't do this because I've heard of this experiment before.
So I think it should be quite interesting to use, although I don't know if to actually take the bait or not. Ali stole most from the shop, seems to be highly responsive, most outgoing, and seemed most happy to continue the experiment until he was stopped.
Or should it have made more notches on the thing?
Danny stopped the experiment, but in such an outspoken way that I suspected he would have real strength of character to bring out.
It's not even reacting anymore.
Can I get more notches? Can I just shock this kid? It's crazy.
Alright, so with that video in mind, here was what was going on. We'll talk about it. Lights are coming back on.
Oh.
Alright, so there's a lot to talk about with the experiment. One, we're going to try and link it here to a couple different things. To two concepts, one being causality. So there's a question in your workbooks. Is this actually an experiment, like a true experiment? So we talked a little bit about the difference between experiments and interviews, or experiments and field experiments and things like that. Is this actually an experiment where we can determine a cause and effect relationship? Did some independent variable influence the dependent variable, influence the participant's behavior of how much they're shocking? So that's one thing to consider, and that's going to be part of the homework, is to answer that question. We're going to have time to do the homework also. Another one that's not mentioned in the workbook, but I think this and a lot of the old studies, older studies, are very clear with this, is ethical considerations. So ethical considerations are a part of we consider that part of the concept of responsibility. So hopefully we all agree that we have a responsibility to conduct ethical studies. When that comes up, when you get asked about responsibility, or just to know it in general, ethical considerations is one thing you can talk about. A couple that I've mentioned here, I think the most obvious one is deception. So they were told at the beginning, well, what is deception, first of all?
Lying.
Basically lying. You know, you're not telling them the whole truth. Whether you're outright lying or you're omitting information, so you're not telling them something that's important. In what ways does this study show deception? How are the participants deceived?
They're not told.
They're not cold?
They're not told about the lethal shock of voltages. They're just told it's an experiment.
They
The learner's experiment.
Yeah, they told them it was safe, that it wasn't lethal, that there was no, what was it? It hurts, but it's not harmful, or something like that. All right, so deception in terms of what they were doing. Anything else? They also deceived them. Maybe that is probably a more serious one. Kind of a lesser deception was they said originally that this wasn't going to be part of the video of the show, because they knew that they were filming for a show, but they thought it was for a bank heist, for filming it like a fake robbery kind of a thing. So they said it wasn't going to be part of the show, but actually at the end they told them it was. Right. So when we're talking about responsibility and ethical considerations, deception is a serious one. Can you think of anything else that was maybe unethical in the study?
Psychological damage, like these guys think they're just shocking a dude because the lady didn't want to do anything after.
Oh no, someone was having fun, man.
Yeah, one of them was having fun.
Yeah, maybe that guy could be his own case study.
Yay!
Yeah, so that's the idea of preventing unnecessary or undue stress or harm, either physical or psychological. Right. So this could be pretty psychologically damaging. Either thinking that you're shocking somebody, or I think most of us would go into this experiment thinking that we wouldn't go that high. Most of us. And then you get the results back, and actually you were up pretty high, right? Or you were in the top percentage of people who did the most shocks, or were more likely to comply. I mean, that could have a psychological influence, psychological effect on you, right? It turns out you're actually kind of worse than you thought you were. So these are two, I think, clear ones that come out of it. Some ways to avoid or reduce that is the idea of informed consent. So if you participate in any of the old IA experiments, hopefully you received informed consent. So that's where they tell you something, they tell you as much as they can. There might still be deception, but they tell you as much as they can about the experiment without kind of giving away what it is. That way you can make an informed decision of whether you want to participate or not. And debriefing. I don't think we did that great of a job debriefing after the old IAs, so even if you did participate and you didn't really get one. Debriefing, they did here after the experiment. They tell them what was it really about. So what did they really do? You weren't actually shocking the person. That person on the other side was part of the experiment. You didn't really hurt anybody and things like that. Right? But even after the debriefing, they said the one female participant took a long time to kind of recover from it. So she did, even though she was debriefed, did still have some psychological, not damage, but harm.
I think if you give informed consent on this one, it actually bring more participants who are just sadists. She doesn't want to shock other people.
You could end up with a sampling bias, or you just get people who want to shock people like that. like that one guy.
I would be very deep.
I think it's just curiosity. Can I get more like obnoxious?
What else? One other key term that we should know, or that we want to know if we don't know it already, is Confederate. We talked about it before. A Confederate is somebody who is a participant, kind of an actor. They're a participant in the study, but they're part of the study. So the person on the other side of the wall who was screaming was a Confederate. Right? They were acting as part of the experiment. We're going to see those quite a bit. So in terms of causality then, what was it? In terms of, is this an experiment? Can we say that this manipulation of the IV caused a change in the behavior? Was it the lab coat or was it something else? What other than the lab coat and the authority principle, what are some other reasons that some people may have administered higher shocks or more shocks than others?
And the tone he used?
So it could have been his voice, meaning that his voice sounded more authoritative.
Robotic. There's no emotion behind it. It was just like saying, please continue the experiment.
Okay. So maybe his lack of empathy in his voice. What else? So this is another thing that came up in the intro that we're coming back to now. What other extraneous variables are there? What other things, other than the IV, whether he's wearing a lab coat or not, could have made the people more or less likely to administer shocks? What are some things that they didn't control for that could have affected their behavior?
What they were feeling that day?
What they were feeling that day, maybe like we saw with the hot sauce experiments, maybe somebody just got bumped on the way in, so they were more upset and more likely to shock somebody. Nice one. Someone else? What else?
If they have a mental illness, is that an extraneous variable?
Could be. Maybe they had some kind of underdeveloped areas of the brain, or some kind of mental health issue. So we don't know if they screened for that beforehand or not.
Temperature of the room.
The temperature of the room.
Yeah, it was too hot.
It was too hot. You want to get it over with, so you give them the 450 shots.
So, I mean, that could be one. We don't know if that would have an effect, but maybe the first couple people came in and it was the beginning of the day and it was still cold in the room. The heat hadn't had a chance to circulate, so they were colder. Maybe they were less likely to shock somebody than people who were heated and warmed up. Could be. What else?
The attractiveness of the lab guy.
Just so you know, I'm gonna kill this guy.
Could be. Maybe they were doing it not because he was wearing a lab coat, but because they thought he was attractive. So they followed him. I feel like I saw some of that in your guys' TOK, was it TOK presentations? You didn't do TOK presentations already, did you? What did you do downstairs in the lecture hall?
That was like about bias.
Yeah.
So maybe someone did it? No.
Yeah, you did the attractive face.
Oh yeah, I did it.
Maybe they were.
That was my EE. It was my EE.
That's for your EE?
It's your EE.
Anyways, yeah, that's another thing.
That's for my EE.
Maybe how much they ate or what they ate had some kind of an effect. Anyways, there's a bunch of different things. So to what extent can we say that this was a controlled experiment? Not the one that we saw on the video, but Milgram's actual experiment. So again, a term that we should be getting familiar with and thinking about as we look at different studies and even coming up with your own ideas and studies are extraneous variables. What other things needed to be controlled? So going back, was it the lab coat? In his first study, he didn't have two different conditions. They were just in there with the coat, and that's where they found, I think, 65% of people were likely to go up to lethal dosages. And another variation, the one that would answer this question a little bit better, he had two conditions. One where the researcher was wearing a lab coat, and one where they were in plain clothes. And just like we saw with Bickman's outside, when he was wearing the white lab coat, 65% of people would go all the way up to 450. Wearing plain clothes, only 22% would go up to that. One thing to keep in mind, in the old psychology, you had to know these percentages. For us, we do not. So if you decide to use this as an example in section A, you can just say people are more likely to listen to a person in authority wearing the lab coat than somebody wearing plain clothes. That would be enough. If you put the percentages, maybe that will help, but again, we don't really know, and it depends on the reader. But our key takeaway here is that in support of the authority principle, people were more likely to administer higher doses of shock if the person was wearing a lab coat, the lab coat being a symbol of authority.
Do we have to remember all the experiment names for the tests?
Not for our, what is it? Not for this psychology year. They have to though.
Yeah, I heard.
Well, no, they didn't really have to either. They didn't have to know that, for the experiments, they didn't have to know the names or anything like that. They could just describe it, but I mean, it's better if you knew the name. But anyways, no, you don't. Because you could use an example that's not an experiment at all. Or you could use this and just not mention the name, and you're still showing the idea of the authority principle, so that's good enough. All right, so again, looking at, with this in mind, is this an example of a true experiment? Does it determine causality, or can we only say that there's a relationship between the two? And for that, you have to think of other extraneous variables and other things that they could have controlled for, or needed to control for, in the research for it to be considered an experiment. All right, we are going to stop there. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we're going to move on from compliance. We'll review compliance, and we'll talk about conformity, which is kind of the broader thing. But I'm going to collect as part of your notebooks, of your workbooks. So you should have the notes on compliance techniques. Again, this will be on Manage Back, due on Wednesday. Take notes here. Respond to the critical thinking extension about causality. Was it an actual experiment? The video on Can Glory is about 8 minutes, an introduction to cults. Finish your notebooks, and that's it. So that'll be due on Wednesday. You got 17 minutes. You can probably get it done. It's good to work on it now too, in case you have questions.